Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Abby Nawrocki, and she is the CEO and founder at Stock. And Stock is getting rid of that excess stock for you in a very nice way. I think they have a great mission and what they're doing, and helping people to alleviate the buildup of excess inventory and abandoned inventory as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that problem and how it led Abby to founding this company. And we're also going to talk about some of the reasons why this happens, and also maybe how to prevent it a little bit, and how this kind of business is evolving for Abby, and how 3PLs and other people are being receptive to it, and some of the benefactors of this business too as well. So Abby, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I love this show. And yeah, talk a little bit about operations and logistics in general.
Yes, let's do it. Happy to get you on for sure, and talk about this. You obviously have a great background in operations, and now have started this company. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about what Stock is, and also tell us kind of like the founding story. How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, it's funny because usually when I tell the founding story, I always say, oh, it started at Deliver, right? Like when we were selling to
Mm,
Shopify, we had all this excess, and I'll get into it. But it really started at Zara. So when I went to college, I
okay.
studied supply chain operations management, went to work for DHL directly out of college, spent time in automotive and consumer, went over to Radial and was running Zara's US distribution. And Zara had an interesting model where it's like a very interesting model and one that
Yeah.
I haven't heard talked about much, but I wonder how relevant it is in the industry nowadays with retailers. But they have all of their inventory as essentially active. And there's nothing in reserve locations that's being replenished to active
Oh,
inventory,
interesting.
and
Okay.
their retail stores are competing with their online consumers for the same inventory. So if they have 20
Oh.
retail stores in like the Southern California area, like Century City or Topanga or Fashion Island or whatever, those store
Mhm.
managers are ordering from the same inventory that online shoppers are ordering from to be able to fill their stores with the best inventory and have the highest sales.
Okay.
Okay, so when we were running that building, we had all of this inventory, and Zara is like best known for their model and their throughput, their inventory turns. But for the
Mhm.
consumer is like their diversification of garments, right? Like I could go into a Zara in Chicago and get some completely different
Yeah.
optionality than if my mom went in St. Louis or in Miami or whatever. And if I go in 6 weeks, there's different stuff there, and that's really how they competed in the early years and grew as big as they did. But of course, like they still had excess as well. And when they would have excess from seasonality, we would put it into what we called the garage. So we had like a 600,000 square foot warehouse, and there was 400,000 on the other side, walled off. And there's a roll up door, etc. And the inventory would go back there, and it would get resold to like a TJ Maxx or Ross through
Okay.
Century 21 or liquidation, but there would be still excess, right? Like there's when it comes to liquidation, I think I posted about this recently, like less than 20%, really it's almost 5% of what retailers or brands present to liquidation actually gets sold. So like Zara had the
Mhm.
same problem. And what we did back then was running the building, we just called the local Salvation Army, and we built the relationship with Angel. And we were like, he ran the Salvation Army, and we were like, hey, we have this
Sure.
excess inventory. Can you come get it? Okay. So, like, really, that's where the idea was born, but it never
Wow.
grew. That was like 2017,
Yeah.
2016. It never really grew after that. We knew it existed. I felt it. I lived it. Then, fast forward to the Deliver days, 2021, we're preparing for the sale to Shopify. And when Harish was building Deliver, like it was the 4PL model. In the early
Mhm.
days, he had 66 warehouse partners. And as we grew the company, is like we have to reduce that down to 30 or less. We had 18,000 square feet here and 50,000 square feet here, 30,000. Like it makes more
Sure.
sense to
Yeah.
have, more space and less buildings and more of the hub and spoke model. And so when we were going through the process of consolidation of the actual buildings, it was absolutely insane to me how many of the brands that we were serving had gone out of business. And that's where the shift in mindset really came from, because it was like when we're
Mm.
working at Zara, you have this enterprise brand and they have excess and they have certain optionalities and avenues and channels for that excess. And it's like not this huge hot button issue. Then you get into this 3PL world that's serving the Shopify brands. And you're just like, holy shit, this is
Mm.
insane how much turnover there is from a brand perspective. So there are 4 million brands that sell on Shopify, but
Yeah.
90% of them go out of business in the first 3 years, right? So
Wow.
it's like
That's a lot. Yeah.
that's where the excess was coming from in the VC backed 3PL space, in this middle tier 3PL. And it was just insurmountable, it felt like, right? It was there was so much of it. And at that point I was like, okay, there has to be a better way. But I still wasn't to the point where I was like, oh, I'm gonna go be an entrepreneur and solve this problem, right? I was like, I have a great
Yeah.
corporate job. I love what I do. You geek out about it all day and steady paycheck and a great team. And yeah. And so I just kind of continued on, did a year at Shopify, 3 months at Flexport, went to Shipmonk when I realized
Mm.
they had the same problem, brands that were going out of business occasionally, right? Seasonality with their higher brands, excess in general. It was like this has to be solved. There's no longer an option to ignore it, to say I'm not going to deal with it. I was like, I have to solve this. And so we went back to that thought process with Zara and was like, okay, if we can do it with Zara and we can connect with
Mm.
nonprofits, we can move this inventory to the larger network of nonprofits. There has to be, an easy way to connect here. And when I realized there was nobody else doing it, right, that's when it was like, okay, this has potential for insane scale, right? This could become a very large business because the two entities are so fragmented, because this is such an
Mm.
underutilized channel for inventory. So that's the origin story.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that, and super interesting, you went to school for
I
operations and
know not a
logistics.
lot of
I
people
mean,
do what they
yeah, I mean, a
went
lot
to
of
school for.
people just kinda end up in this industry, right? I mean, like, myself too, like, just kinda fall into it, and so, I'm curious, was there, like, something very interesting when you were younger that caught your attention that led you down this path?
It was actually when I was at IU, junior
Mm.
year or before you go into junior year, they make you take one. It's called I-Core integrated curriculum. They make you take one
Okay.
class from every single major in the business school. And
Oh,
when I took
interesting.
that one operations and supply chain class, I was like, that's it. Sign me up. I'm done. Like, this just makes so much sense. It's so
Yeah,
tactical. It's so fit for an A type personality. It's just very tangible. And I just
yeah.
loved the material. So that's what I studied.
Awesome, awesome. Great to know that, and I think super interesting to hear how you kind of saw this problem and you saw it again and then again, right? And kind of kept like itching at you a little bit, like I gotta figure out how do we solve this like on a broader scale, and super interesting to hear about the Zara model too as well, and that actually like explains because I always kind of wondered like, oh, every store has like a little different variety, and they have things online that they don't have in store, and that makes a lot of sense now, like doing that. So I think that is like a very interesting kind of retail model to see that different variety in different places, as you said. So interesting to hear the background there. So now you founded stock, right, and you're helping essentially you know take care of this excess inventory and deliver it ultimately to nonprofits that can utilize it right in some beneficial way.
Yeah. And I guess too is like when I was doing it nights and weekends when I was still
Mhm.
working corporate, if you will, at Shipmonk, at Flexport.
Sure.
And I don't know if you can call that corporate, but for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
And
working for somebody else. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I was doing it nights and weekends, and I was figuring out how to monetize it and if it was scalable, and all of that. And once I figured that out, then I was like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. This is a service that can be provided, whether it's SaaS or marketplace, however you want to look at
Mm.
it, to the 3PL industry, one that can be built into their tech stack, one that can be built into their operating models, and one that will build a great for-profit company, right? A very successful for-profit company. And so that's kind of like when it clicked. But yeah, it's on this other side. Like, I had no experience in nonprofit. I literally had
Mm.
zero exposure to the nonprofit world when I went out to pursue stock and see if we could scale it. And it's just been an incredible journey learning about the structure of that industry, the people who run that industry, and like the missions that they're solving. I think it has to be my most favorite part of the job is onboarding new nonprofits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's super interesting too because if you think about it, like obviously, like you said, like in the beginning, right? There's all this excess inventory, right? I mean, like you gave the example of Zara and their 400,000 square foot garage, right? In
Yes.
a sense, right, with all that stuff built up there, but I think too, like from a nonprofit perspective, right? I mean, not everybody in the nonprofit sector, I'm sure, is like familiar with this problem too, as well, right? So it's like,
Not at all.
yeah. So like they need inventory, but they're not even aware that like, oh, there is this the potential thing, right? So you're bringing those kind of two sides together, which I think is great. But I'm curious because I think the first time we spoke about this, and you were saying like, oh, we're bringing excess inventory, giving it to nonprofits. I'm like, oh, stock must be a nonprofit then too, right? But it's for profit, right? So tell us a little bit about like how does that work? Because essentially, whoever has the excess is paying you to take away and give it to nonprofit. Like, how does that work? And what is kind of the I guess justification on like a 3PL side, for example, to like pay to get rid of waste almost in a sense.
Yeah, that's a great question and one
Mm.
that I could spend a lot of time talking about. So the
Sure.
the revenue model is threefold. We
Mm.
have annual contracts with 3PLs where they're paying a
Okay.
software fee, right? Like they're just paying a monthly flat rate to utilize the service. That allows them to donate as much as they want. Where is it beneficial for them? In three places. Okay. The first, and this is not in any priority order, but the first is in the tax incentives. When companies go out of business and they leave their inventory with their 3PL, most often, if the 3PL is smart, they will take a warehouseman's lien on that inventory. Therefore, they
Mm.
own it. Therefore, they can make the decision and recoup the financial benefit of that decision. And so when they donate, they get 1.5 times the cost of the goods or fair market value. Now,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not allowed to give any tax advice. I'm not a CPA. All
Sure.
3PLs need to consult with their accountants, but depends on if you're a C Corp, LLC, S Corp, all that, how much you've donated, what write offs you've taken. If you're profitable, you don't get a tax incentive if you're not profitable. So make sure you're a profitable 3PL.
Yeah, that's always a
But
good thing. Yeah.
always a good thing. Yeah, always an important part of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get the tax incentive at 75 cents on the dollar, which is incredibly beneficial when you're comparing it to liquidation, where they're getting 8 cents on the dollar. It's like 800% higher ROI when you donate than when you sell it. Like, would you
Mm.
want 8 cents in cash or would you want 75 cents deducted from your overall income revenue at the end of the year? Lowers your tax bracket, keeps more cash in your pocket. So that's number
Sure.
one. Number two is how fast we can move the inventory. And so this is like really, really, really the value prop, the sweet spot is in traditional liquidation, it takes 16 weeks on average to go from, hey, I'm calling a liquidator, I want to get this stuff out, to it actually leaving the warehouse physically, right?
Mm.
In donation, we can do that in less than 5 days. It takes literal
Oh, wow.
hours to match the inventory. And then we manage all of the transportation and move it out within days. So if you were to list something, if you were running a 3PL and you're like, Abby, we have 6 pallets of cosmetics, mixed SKUs, I don't know what's in there, put it up on the platform, it will be matched within hours and shipped within days. And why that's important is because a lot of warehouses are at capacity. A lot of warehouses don't have optimized pick pass, optimized storage due to dead inventory that's scattered throughout the racks,
Yeah.
etc. And so like that space, if it was being occupied with with inventory that moved that had higher turns 4 or 6 times a year, you would be generating $2,000 in revenue off of that inventory every month. If you're sitting on pallets that aren't moving, you're not generating any revenue, right? So like
Mm.
the opportunity cost there is maybe you're generating storage fees on it, but everybody knows that's not how you're eating at the end of the day off of storage fees.
Right.
It's the shipping label. It's, you want it to be
The
turning.
actual
And so
movement. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so the value prop there is speed. And then the other trade off is uh, destruction or disposal, which is where you just call waste management. They bring a dumpster and they throw it away. In that scenario, you have speed, but you're spending money to get rid of it. You're not getting the tax incentive the same. The speed
Yeah.
might not even be the same. The branding, the ROI, etc. So the first, back to when we were talking about revenue streams, the first is a 3PL signs up to use the software. We become a vendor. We are part of their tech stack. They can do unlimited donations. They're paying a flat monthly fee. This amazing part about this is like, it's great when we're 1-800 junk and we're coming to pick up inventory that's been abandoned, but it's even better when they start offering it as VAS to their thriving brands, because then they can charge
Mm,
75 cents a unit, turn it into a revenue generator, turn it into a profit center. It becomes another channel. Oh, we are XYZ 3PL. I wonder if a 3PL is actually named XYZ 3PL. We're XYZ 3PL, and we offer D2C fulfillment, B2B fulfillment, returns processing, FBA prep, donation, right?
mm,
It becomes what they offer, and it becomes part of the pricing model, part of the RFP, part of the contract, and then they can generate revenue off of it. So we're seeing a lot of 3PLs actually, uh, returning
sure.
the value for the software fees that they're paying. The second part of that of the business model is like, we have a marketplace, so people can just transact one off, right? They can come, any
Okay.
brand, any 3PL, if they don't want to do an annual contract, if they want to test it out, if they're skeptical of it, can come to the marketplace and just list once, and it's
Mm,
$500 to list. You list and you ship, you get the same tax incentives, you get the same space, cleared up, you leveraged, you get the same ROI, but you don't need to sign an annual contract in that scenario, right? You're not white labeling it. You're losing out on the opportunity to turn it into a profit center for yourself, but there, it
sure.
still serves its purpose. And then the third part of it is we manage all of the transportation. So the nonprofits actually pay for transportation to move inventory into
Okay.
their networks, which is again great, because it's reduced cost for the 3PL, it's reduced labor, resources, etc. We just send them a BOL when it's ready to get picked up. And so that, because we manage it for the nonprofits, it's a revenue stream. It's not a profit center, but it
Mm.
still is, part of the business. And so,
Yeah. Yeah, interesting there. And so essentially stock is like this marketplace, right, that you've created and you're facilitating kind of the connection through that. And I like that the 3PL or whoever the person with the excess inventory is can, just go on and put it on there and then I guess the software kind of makes that connection or you guys make that connection behind the scenes, whatever the case may be. But I think that's really, really great, right? And obviously, very super interesting to hear how 3PLs are using that as a potential profit center, like an additional service. And I could see for some brands like that would be very appealing, right? Because it is like also like a nice thing, right? From a marketing perspective too, like, oh, any excess inventory we have is donated to these nonprofits or something like that. So very interesting. And I got to ask you, I mean, what is like, I mean, I see you on LinkedIn posting about like the different types of donations that occur and everything, but what's been like your favorite so far, or maybe the most
uh,
interesting?
yeah, there's a lot of very interesting. What we did a truckload of like fish tanks, right? And it'll go to
Oh,
schools and it'll get
interesting.
put into elementary schools and middle schools. We did 180 gallons of Dr. Pepper. We like in the bladders that need to
I
go,
remember
like
you told me about that one. Yeah, yeah.
fountain drinks. We had one where it's like a reseller who buys warehouses, like old, like warehouses that people have
Mm,
inventory in that they just want to be done with. So they'll go and buy, and then if they get stuff that they don't want to sell, they'll
mm.
donate it on stock. And they had hundreds of thousands of like lab equipment for biology
Oh, wow.
classes, and like I don't even know what the equipment is for, but it's like all these microscopes and like,
Yeah.
and that gets donated to University of Chicago and Northwestern University. It was here, it was local, but it's
Mm,
just like somebody listed OEM RV spare parts, like spare RV parts,
yeah.
and we see tons and tons of different things now. Like if you aggregated, our highest transacting vertical is apparel. 23% of everything that goes through the platform is apparel. Our second highest is food and beverage. Expiration dates, ingredients change, packaging on the artwork changes. So we see a ton in food and beverage. Third highest category is cosmetics. And then the list goes on: home goods, toys, electronics, etc.
Yeah.
How about like THC beverages? I had three brands who have come to us with THC,
Really?
and I'm like, what nonprofit is going to take this? Like, I don't know if this is
Yeah.
offensive. And so, like, I get nervous and I'm like, oh no. And then it's like cancer research, right? Like cancer
Oh, okay.
trials.
Yeah, yeah.
And Burning Man. Burning Man is actually a nonprofit. They're a 501c3, so they can take
Yeah, yeah. I'm
donations.
sure they would see that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is like, it's just incredible to see the matches.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's super interesting to hear that and that 180 gallons of Dr. Pepper. That's just wild to think about in concept. Obviously, I mean, you have I mean, a great business model, right? And a great thing that you're doing to be able to give this inventory like a better life than maybe it would get otherwise, right? Like you mentioned, like, oh yeah, we could roll up the dumpster and just throw it out, right? But then what happens with that? Like it goes out and then it's got to go into the environment and all these different things. And obviously, I've heard tons of stories about what happens with excess things, especially like textiles, right? They get just burnt in these big pits overseas somewhere or something like that, which is obviously not that great either. So obviously, this kind of highlights the just problem with like excess, right? And excess inventory and things like that. So what do you think are and what do you see? I mean, are some of like the main drivers of this and like how do we try to, prevent some of this excess as well?
Yeah, it's like I can't bite the hand that feeds me, but
Yeah.
the main drivers of this are accessibility, like Shopify, right? Like
Mm.
Shopify gave just the average Joe the optionality, the opportunity to
So,
build,
yeah.
yeah, to build a company to sell. And so what happened, and it's like ChatGPT, right? It's like I'm a mom in
Mm.
suburban Chicago, and I'm like, this is not a real story, but for the purpose of the use case, and I'm like, oh, my daughter loves these heart pencils, these pink heart pencils. I'm going to chat GPT and find a manufacturer in Vietnam. Easy as that. I'm going to contact them, fill out their form, and have them manufacture whatever the MOQ is. Let's say it's 100,000 pencils. I'm going to call Flexport, put it on an ocean container, bring it over here. I'm going to call Ship Bob, Ship Dude, Ship Bro, Ship Your Pants, Ship, whoever, put it in their 3PL,
Yeah.
and I'm going to have this amazing business. I'm going to be a millionaire. All the moms are going to buy my heart pencils. Then you realize how capital intensive, how time consuming, how
Yeah.
difficult it is to start a D2C brand. It is not easy, right? And
Mhm.
and then you go out of business and you just say, hey, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then that inventory is left sitting with the 3PL,
Mm.
right? There's so much accessibility to attempt to create a D2C brand, and there's so much marketing and advertisement around how great your life can be if you become a D2C founder,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it's incredibly hard to do. And it's okay, like, people try, but we just need to make sure that we have all of the links in the supply chain to take care of what happens after you don't succeed, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole story here is it's okay to try to, some will be successful, and everybody should have access, and everybody should try to be. I would like to eventually attempt to open a Shopify IDs and just
Yeah.
see like what the whole process is, right? Like, not in the hopes to build $1 billion company, but just logically and logistically and tactically to see what it's like. But yeah, we need to make sure that we have a full end-to-end solution. I sometimes call myself the grim reaper of Shopify brands. I'm like, whoever comes after me to pick up all the dead bodies is like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's your time. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So I think, like, it's in terms of like reducing it, it's a lot of early in building a company, a brand, a D2C
Mm.
brand or a retail brand, consumer brand, is having the knowledge and the awareness of what you're going to manufacture and why,
Mm.
right? So data and insights into inventory, production, supply, demand, etc., versus just like shooting from the hip will reduce. But then also it's just like we're going to just have to have incredibly robust end of life, right? Like donation is a sister channel to liquidation, destruction, recycle, secondhand selling. It's not the only answer. Like you have to have the suite, and you have to understand where ROI is for the inventory that you have specifically.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's great points, and that accessibility, I think is such a interesting cause there, because it is like, okay, well, it's super easy to get something spun up, and obviously, like you see, on Instagram or social media or whatever, like, oh, I'm a 7-figure Amazon seller, buy my course, right? Comment
Yep.
course, like underneath, right? And then it's like, oh wow, this person can do it, and like they just did it on the side while they're working their regular job at Costco or whatever, and now they're a millionaire. Wow, I could do that too, right? And I think, so much of that gets hyped up, but it is, the reality beyond like the setup and everything, like you said, is like, whoa, all of a sudden, like, not just because I posted my heart pencil, it's gonna like blow up overnight. Like there's actually like all this stuff that's going on behind the scenes to fuel that. So I would say we need more maybe supply chain education in the high school level, maybe to help with some of that, right?
100%.
For the end to end, but very interesting. What you've built here. And so obviously, as you said, this has kind of been brewing in your head for many years here, but it now is finally like out there and launched into a full business. So, you're just getting started here in the last year, right? As a
Yeah.
business. So tell us a little bit about like, what does the future of stock look like? How does this continue to evolve?
Yeah. So really ideally we become the solution for excess inventory. As I talked about,
Mhm.
right now donation is a channel, right? And it's this under leveraged channel, underutilized channel, and like that's where we're starting. It has the highest ROI, it's the most fragmented, but truly what we want to help solve is excess. And so like we look at liquidation, there's 15,000 liquidators out in the market. How do we optimize that, and how do we optimize destruction, disposal, etc. And so I think the long future for stock is really being able to provide insights, data, and then execution around end of life inventory, the whole suite.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's really, a great mission to be on. I think what you're doing is it's such like a very noble cause too, right? Because it is like, okay, like you're solving this problem for businesses from, from a financial perspective, like you said, you outlined kind of the reasons why, but then also like you're solving this big problem for people that are in need of stuff, right? And being able to, give this another life that is meaningful to people. And I think that's such a great thing. So really appreciate you coming on the show today, Abby, and talking to us about this, and appreciate you starting this company too, because I think it is very meaningful, as I said. So if people are interested in whether they're a 3PL or they got excess inventory and this is their eureka moment on how they can get rid of it, or they're a nonprofit and they're looking to get some of this excess inventory for their people that they serve, what's the best way to learn more about stock and get in touch?
Yeah, we have a Webflow form on the website. They're more than welcome to fill that out, and they'll get more information in a couple hours after submitting. So that's nonprofits or anyone with access, or they can always email me directly, Abby at stockitbetter.com. So again, the website itself is stockitbetter.com. I couldn't get the domain for stock, just stock. That
Yeah,
one was
that's
already
probably a hard
taken.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should have thought about that a little bit longer in the beginning. No, but put two Ks, STOCKK. But yeah, they can reach out to me directly, Abby at stockitbetter.com, or go to the website and fill out the form, and we'd be happy to support them with whatever their needs are.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So, Abby, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's always good seeing you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.